Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.
The Summit of Lawrenceburg is the premier senior and assisted living community in the region. The Summit makes it home for you or your loved one with diverse suites that welcome and encourage community, plus gathering spaces, neighborhoods, daily activities, and a wonderful staff that supports you every day.
Hi, I'm Tara Blue. I'm the new director of the Summit, and we would like to invite you and your family to come and tour our facility. We would love to see you here.
There's no job too big or too small for Gonzalez Lawn and Landscapes. Owner Chris Gonzalez works hard to make your commercial or residential properties one of the neighbors will envy. You won't find a lower price anywhere else, and that's a guarantee. We offer mowing, landscape removal, small construction jobs, and more. Our team is licensed and insured to ensure the best work for Lawrence County and surrounding areas. Your satisfaction is our goal. We won't leave until you're happy. Call today to set up a free quote.
Make your property rock and roll with services from GNS Excavating, specializing in white sand, compost, mulch, topsoil, landscape gravel, and steel landscape edging. Turn to the pros who know how to make your project shine with years of experience. The best part is they're locally owned and operated. Choose from a vast selection of mulch and rock from their conveniently located facility at number 3 Valley Road in Lawrenceburg, just off Buffalo Road. Phone 931-279-3841 and get started today.
Hey, this is Phil Hooper. Get the look you want for your favorite school, church, or business with apparel from HD Ink Screen Printing in Leoma, Tennessee. Got a logo you need embroidered or screen printed? Let HD Ink give you the professional look that sets the bar in today's world. We do fundraisers and custom designed apparel and so much more. Call today, 931-201-2961, or come see us at our new shop located at 26 Ingram Road in Leoma. Remember, HD Ink for the look you want and the look you deserve.
Jack Davis Insurance, located at 201 West Gain Street in Lawrenceburg, has you covered through life's obstacles. Jack Davis specializes in group insurance for businesses and institutions of all sizes. With coverage for life, accidents, cancer, critical illness, short-term disability, dental, and vision, Jack Davis can customize a plan to meet every need. Now available Medicare plans for seniors. Contact Paige Davis at 931-492-9284 today for Medicare Supplement, Medicare Advantage, and prescription drug plan insurance. Serving Lawrence and surrounding counties since 1987, call the team at Jack Davis Insurance today at 931-242-5225.
Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.
And welcome everybody in here to the X Sports Network for this Thursday edition of the Mark My Words Sports Show here on the X Sports Network. I'm your host, Michael Marks, and on today's episode, we've got a lot to get into. We've got baseball sub-state. Got that game going on over my right shoulder. We've got softball sub-state to talk about. We've got softball region championships in sub-state to talk about. No Major League update today, but obviously we have some stuff in college sports to talk about. We've got some college game day locations. We've got some stuff about college football, maybe the playoff. We've got some college basketball news, and then we're going to talk about college baseball, obviously with it being the last weekend of the regular season. So we'll jump right into it with the game over my right shoulder, the 3A baseball state sectional series, game one between Lawrence County and Martin Luther King Jr. Magnets. Wildcats come in at 27-8 on the season. MLK comes in at 20-11. Obviously, Lawrence County district or region champs. MLK Magnet region runner-up. And a bit of an unconventional start in this one. Logan Mays starting on the mound for the Wildcats doesn't get an out. Patel, the starting pitcher for the Royals, he only got one out. And it was 4-3 after the first inning, Lawrence County with the lead. And then that Wildcat offense got going. Jack Emerson and Braden Morrison each with multiple hits. Morrison had 4 RBIs on the day, an awesome game for him. And then Case Chapman does an excellent job coming in a situation that he was probably not expecting, and gives them 4 shutout innings, only allowing 2 hits. An excellent job, and now gives Lawrence County the 1-0 series lead. A win tonight, and you go to the state tournament. A loss will force a game 3. Time, I believe, is still to be determined on that, and a date as well. So for tonight's game, do you try to throw Logan Mays again? Obviously, only went 17 pitches last night, or do you keep the rotation and roll with Braden Morrison? And obviously, the offense hasn't put a whole lot of pressure on the pitching staff to be excellent. Lights out, perfect every night. Obviously, put up 13 runs last night. Have been able to score, if not in the double digits, at least very close in every game they've played this postseason. You go all the way back to the first round of the district tournament. It feels like forever ago now. 14-1 win over Marshall County, a 9-8 win over Tullahoma, an 8-1 win over Creekwood, a 12-5 win over Battle Creek, and now a 13-3 win over Martin Luther King Jr. Magnet last night. You've been putting up big offensive numbers, and it seems that really after that Marshall County game, it's been going up. You have the 9 runs against Tullahoma. Yeah, only 8 against Creekwood, but 12 against Battle Creek. 13 against the Royals last night, and you will have them again tonight, obviously. First pitch set for 5 o'clock over there at Tom Cruise Field. So, listen, get out support. It's going to be a big game. And listen, win tonight, and you're heading to Murfreesboro for the first time since 1977, a year that you were the state runner-ups. So, a big deal. Go out, support the Wildcats tonight, because they have been excellent this season. And how special to be able to cap off a season like this with the trip to Murfreesboro. So we'll turn things over to softball on the 2A side of things. We will start off with the Summertown Lady Eagles, 29-7, taking on the Community Vi-Queens at 29-9. Unfortunately, a loss for the Lady Eagles, 5-2. Summertown offense came out to a good start, got the first 2 runs of the game, was up 2-0 heading into the 4th inning. Community able to push a run across in the 4th. They bring Annie Prince in the 4th inning. She shuts him down. Didn't allow another run for Summertown after that point. Community puts up 4 more runs in the 5th. Gets them the lead and the victory. So the Summertown Lady Eagles finish as the Region 5 AA runner-up at 29-8. Community gets win number 30 of the season, pushing them to 30-9 in the region champs. So Summertown and Community split the region and district tournament. Obviously, the Lady Eagles got the district tournament champion. Community, maybe a bit of a more valuable one with Sub-State hosting on the line, picking up the region championship victory. So we do have our 2 sub-state matchups for these 2 teams, obviously with Summertown and Community. Summertown, the Lady Eagles, 29-8, will be taking on Harpeth. The Lady Indians, 16-14. That one will be at Harpeth High School tomorrow. I believe a time is still to be determined, but I would assume 5:30, 6 o'clock as our most first pitches. But again, this is that time of year where you got high school graduations going on, so some games may need to get moved or graduations get moved, and I would assume a game would probably be a little easier to move than an entire graduation. But I would assume tomorrow, 5:30, 6 o'clock, we'll have that game on the X Sports Network. And for the Community Vi-Queens, they come in at 30-9. They will be taking on Stewart County at home. Stewart County comes in at 19-13 on the season. And again, same thing. Game will be Friday to be determined on the time. Win, you go to Murfreesboro, lose, and your season's over. So, and opposite to baseball, this is a one-game series. You win and you're in, you lose and you're out. There's no, you can lose game 1 and then win games 2 and 3. You got one shot. And you'd like to say, at least record-wise, that Summertown and Community look like they're in good spots, but you got to play the game. And here's a perfect example of that last night in the 3A side of things on softball. So, Lawrence County Lady Cats came in with, fewer wins and more losses than Creekwood, and that did not matter one bit. Lawrence County comes in at 24-14, Creekwood at 26-10. But a 10-5 win for the Lady Cats, allowing them to host Sub-State. So now, for Lawrence County this year, you've had, and both baseball and softball, win the regular season district, district play, both baseball and softball, win the district tournament, both baseball and softball, win the region tournament, both baseball and softball, and now we're hosting Sub-State at home for both. Listen, it's been a special year here in Lawrenceburg, for at least on the diamond side of things, and listen, the train keeps rolling. Obviously, like I said, 3 home runs in the game. 2 of the 3 came in the first inning. Elizabeth Hagan, a 3-run shot to put Lawrence County on the board, her third home run of the year. And actually, 3 is a pretty common number here. You have 3 girls hit 3 home runs, and it was each of their third home run of the year. Brindley Gillum follows that up with a solo shot, and then Tevye Statham a two-run shot in the third inning, I believe. But then you got Callie Brown, Brindley Gillum, each with 2 hits. Lily Lloyd, 5 stolen bases on her own. Incredible. Elizabeth Hagan got hit around a little bit on the mound early. Obviously, the 4 runs, 4 of the first runs of the game did go to were for Battle Creek were in those first couple of innings. But Callie Brown comes in the last 3 2/3, only allowing 3 hits, 1 run, 5 strikeouts to hold on for the win, 10-5. So we got some sub-state matchups now for the softball side of things. So Lawrence County Lady Cats now at 25-14. We'll be taking on the Springfield Yellow Jackets, who are 27-8 at Jim Chance Field. With graduation Friday, I believe a time and date are still to be determined. I haven't heard an official check real quick just to see if anything has changed, but I don't believe anything is official with that yet. So that is still the case as of the recording of this. Obviously, keep up to date on everything on Facebook with Exports or with with Orange County's softball page. They'll have everything posted up there for everything I don't know right now. But obviously, graduation at Lawrence County is tomorrow night. Game's supposed to be tomorrow night, so probably going to have to. I would assume the game's probably going to get moved, maybe to Saturday, maybe earlier on Friday. Not sure. And the other game, the Creekwood Redhawks will be taking on the Liberty Creek Wolves. That game will be at Liberty Creek High School Friday, to be determined, obviously, on the time. And same thing it is in 2A as it is in 3A. Winning, you go to Murfreesboro. Losing, you're done. And you don't get any second chances. Winning, you're in. Losing, you're done. A one-game series. So that will cover it for our high school sports segment today. Obviously, Lawrence County Wildcats took Game 1 in their sub-state series in baseball over the MLK Magnet Royals. Final score of 13-3, a run rule in 5 innings. And again, wasn't the greatest offensive or the greatest defensive start for the Wildcats, but really able to clean things up as the game went along, and obviously a run rule win. We'll try to do the same tonight to send the Wildcats to their first state tournament appearance in almost 50 years. And then on the softball side of things, Summertown unfortunately falls to Community 5-2 in the region championship game, so they will have to travel tomorrow for their sub-state matchup against Harpeth. Again, the game at Harpeth High School tomorrow. Not sure about the time, if it's official yet or if anything is, but again, assumption just with the way typical softball games start, 5:30, 6 o'clock would be an estimated start time, but could be earlier, could be later. And again, stay up to date with everything on social media. And then on the 3A side of things, Lawrence County getting a big win over Creekwood in their region championship game, 10-5. Puts Lawrence County Lady Cats at home for their sub-state game, whether that matchup will be tomorrow or on Saturday against Springfield, with the chance to go to the Murfreesboro on the line. So we'll jump things over to the college side of things. Brett McMurphy from On3, in an interview with the ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips, Phillips quoted as saying, ESPN has made it clear they want it to stay at 12 or 14, but no more than 16 when discussing an expanded playoff format. This was then followed up by Phillips saying the desire from the coaches and the ADs is to go to 24. The Big 10, the Big 12, the ACC, and Notre Dame are all for it. Pretty much just waiting for the SEC to agree before the model is adopted. And this is a lot of what I talked about with the expanded, there's now 72 team or 76 team NCAA tournament. I'm not a huge fan of expansion, and I get NIL and the transfer portal has really leveled the playing field. I mean, you don't have it's going to be really hard to have dynasties. We haven't had a back-to-back winner of the national championship since Georgia in 2021 and 2022. Before that really all got kind of settled. You've had 3 different winners from the same conference, but 3 different winners in the last 3 years. 4. Well, you can even go back to the second Georgia title and say 4 winners in 4 years. But you go back to, honestly, just omit Indiana this year because they don't necessarily fit into that. But for the last couple of years, we've been able to look at a national champion and go back to week 1 and be like, yeah, they probably were the best team in the country. You know, with Michigan, with Ohio State. Maybe they weren't the best team every week, but by the end of the season, they were the best team. With Georgia in the early 2020s, with Alabama, that COVID year, they were unstoppable. Even go back to that 2019 LSU team. from the time they beat Texas, I think everybody had the idea, okay, this is probably one of the best teams in the country. So why do we need a 24-team playoff format to tell us what we already know? Now, listen, the two-team national championship format that was the BCS era from 1998 to 2013, it had its flaws, and obviously it was the first real big championship system in football, or at least on the college side of things with major Division I. It had its holes, but before then you didn't even have the number one playing number two in a bowl game. It was the SEC winner went to the Sugar Bowl, and the Big 12 winner went to the Cotton Bowl, and the Big 10 and Pac-12, or the Big 10 and the Pac-10 champions went to the Rose Bowl to play each other. It was that. It wasn't 1 versus 2 playing in the Rose Bowl for the national championship. The 1 versus 2 thing really, it was effective. You put 1 and 2 in there. Typically, you would think those are the best 2 teams, but it did have its flaws in years 2004. There were multiple undefeated teams. You had, obviously, USC, and they ended up winning the national championship. Making sure I get the teams right here. But yes, USC took down Oklahoma, but also that year you had undefeated Utah, and this was prior to Utah being in the Pac-12 or the Pac-10 at the time. They were still in the Mountain West, but they went 12-0. You had Auburn, who went 12-0, won the SEC, and so that's when you saw the first flaw. You had USC, obviously, national, went undefeated, boat raced everybody, and then the next team came out of the Big 12, and it was Oklahoma, who went 12-1, and obviously their only loss was the national championship. And then you had Auburn there, another undefeated team. Utah wasn't necessarily getting the most credibility at this point. It was a young Urban Meyer, and he had it was a really good team, Alex Smith, but wasn't there. Obviously, they were still a small school and weren't going to get the recognition. But again, do we need... I liked the addition of the 4-team playoff until, obviously, you had the year with the Penn State. I think it was 2016 that they got left out, or thought they were left out. 2017, maybe. An Auburn team that got left out one year. So, obviously, the 4-team playoff had its faults. So where do you go next? 6, 8? Well, they made the jump to 12. And after this past year, with Notre Dame not making the playoff as a 2-loss team, have everybody wanting it bigger, because obviously more conferences want more teams in so they can get more money out of it. It's what it is, so you can build a better team, so you can win more championships, so you can bring in more money. It's just a continuous cycle of that. We'll just go back to this past year. We'll look at the final playoff rankings of the regular season. You had Ohio State. Yeah, they had a chance to win it all last year. Number 2, Indiana. Of course, they did. Number 3, Georgia. They were pretty good, yeah. Number 4, Texas Tech. They didn't score a point. I thought they had a good chance, but they didn't score a point in their playoff game. So, I'm not going to give them a yes on this. And obviously, this is all hindsight now, so it makes a lot of sense. Number 5, Oregon. Did they have a chance to win it all? I'll give them a half point on that one, because they did look really good until they ran into Indiana, and you can say that about a lot of teams. Ole Miss, yeah, they had a chance to win it all, surprisingly, without a coach. Number 7, A&M. I'll stop it there. So, realistically, you got about, 4 teams that could win it all, and that's just looking at the teams that made the playoffs. I'm not counting a Notre Dame or a Vanderbilt or a Texas in there, but we will talk about that in a little bit. So, all you expand to 2014 playoff is just going to throw more teams in the playoff, say more schools can have more playoff appearances. And in the grand scheme of things, it does give you a chance for a Cinderella upset. You'll get one eventually, probably. Last year was the first time we saw one of the teams that got a bye actually win a game. It's typically been those lower seeds being victorious. So that brings me to our next topic today of do we need a 2014 playoff? I say no, but and we will say that there is one positive of this. If you throw 24 teams in the playoff, and this is not guessing what each of those slots are, this is just 1 through 24, the 24 best teams in the country, well, you're going to have a ton of games on campuses, which can fix the problem of teams not scheduling home and homes anymore. Looking at the screen in front of me, you have a Houston versus Miami matchup. That's a ton of fun. Now, Miami probably boat races them, but again, you're getting matchups like that. You're not going to have people sitting out of bowl games. If you got... Here's another example. We'll just stick with that Houston and Miami game. So, obviously, Miami's players aren't going to sit out. Houston, I don't know exactly how many players they had drafted, but I don't think they had any sit out of a bowl game. But you could look at a team that did and fit them into this mold. I mean, Texas felt like half their team quit on them pretty much for the bowl game. Arch had to single-handedly beat Michigan. So, I mean, that's another thing you get solved right there. You get a bunch of home games on campuses, on TV, in December when teams are at their best. You get a lot of people not sitting out. And yeah, it does give you the chance at a real Cinderella, maybe. But on the contrary, it feels like a bunch of pointless games that are just going to, one, shorten the regular season, which I don't like. It's taking away conference championship games, which... yeah, here or there, honestly, outside of the Big Ten and the SEC, the other conferences don't. Every other conference probably could use a championship game. For the Big Ten and the SEC now, it doesn't seem viable. But we saw the instance last year. You had a 10-2 Alabama team lose in the SEC championship game, lose pretty convincingly, and they weren't punished at all for a loss. So, it already means that those games don't mean anything. Pretty much everybody's locked in before then. So, again, not the biggest fan of a 2014 playoff. I think it's too much. But it is what it is. So, we'll go back to the 2025 season. That's where I've pulled up the Houston versus Miami, fake matchup. So On3 posted a bracket of what last year's college football playoff field would have looked like with the 24 teams, and that is just a ginormous bracket for college football. But looking at it, let's go through and look at some of these matchups. So the top 8 are getting byes in this, and then 9 through 16 or 9 through 24 will play. So Ohio State, and I believe the first 2 rounds are on home campuses. So you have Ohio State getting a host, as well as Oklahoma, Texas Tech, Oregon, Indiana, A&M, Georgia, Ole Miss, all hosting. First round games, you got Virginia at USC. I think that would have been a pretty good game. You got 2 really good offenses. You got USC is definitely a little more flashy. Virginia, not as much, but they were this close away from a conference championship. USC kind of struggled down the stretch, but had their times where they looked really good. You get North Texas versus Alabama. One of the ones that's, why are we having that game? I think Virginia USC is awesome. North Texas Alabama is just I get Alabama was a little beat up at the end of the year, but that's a beatdown. Probably a beatdown. Listen, and that I was a huge fan of that North Texas team. You had Caleb Hawkins, you had Drew Mestamaker, you had an excellent receiving core. And if you don't get blown out by South Florida in that Thursday night game, Friday night game, whatever it was, you probably made the playoff this year. So you get number 22 Tulane versus Texas. Texas is kind of a battering ram at the end of the year. So I would say Texas to win that one. Houston versus Miami, and kind of the same thing that could be said with Texas except for Miami. They were a battering ram. And Houston, yeah, while they may have given some teams some trouble, weren't really going to trip anybody up. I really don't think so. Arizona and Utah is an 18-15 matchup. Nova Fida looked really good there at the end of the year. But Utah, man, they had a fun brand of football. I would give Utah the win there. Iowa State, Notre Dame, I kind of look at Notre Dame the same way I would look at Texas and Miami, is they were playing their best ball at the end of the year. Michigan, Vanderbilt, Vandy looked really, prior to the bowl game, the last 4 weeks of the regular season, they did everything they could to get themselves a playoff spot, and they will for probably a decent bit of time, if it's not already an untrue statement, they'll be one of the very few 2-loss SEC teams to not make the playoff, at least at that scale. Georgia Tech at 22 versus number 11 BYU. Yeah, that'd be a good game, but I see BYU winning that one. Georgia Tech was just not very good at the end of the year. So I would give the edge to USC. So USC, Ohio State, you'd get Alabama, Oklahoma again. You'd get Texas Tech. That's a fun second-round matchup in Lubbock. Old Big 12 matchup there. You get Miami, Oregon. That looks like a fun game. You get Arizona or Utah, so Utah versus Indiana. Maybe not the craziest game in the world, but I mean it'd be fun. Devin Dampier trying to do the impossible. I mean, Indiana just looked really good down the stretch. Notre Dame, Texas A&M. We get a rematch of one of the best games from earlier in the season, where Notre Dame was a missed extra point away from sending that one to overtime. You get Vanderbilt and Georgia. Vandy and Georgia didn't play last year, and funny enough, Georgia has been the team that's been able to dodge Vanderbilt during this little Cinderella run where Vanderbilt's just beating everybody like Alabama and LSU and schools like that. Then you get Georgia Tech or you get BYU versus Ole Miss. And boy, what a polar opposites on the spectrum. I mean, it would have been a fun party in Provo for that first week, but the next week you got Utah, or you got the BYU, the Cougars heading to the Grove. Looking at second round games, this is where you start to see the pointlessness of it. Yeah, Ohio State's probably going to beat USC or Virginia handily. Alabama, Oklahoma is going to give us another great game. We'll just, since that one was already played, we'll say Alabama wins it. Texas and Texas Tech, and again, with how good Texas looked at the end of the year and how bad Texas Tech looked in the playoff, okay, you get an upset there. Texas going to the Elite Eight. Miami and Oregon, I would do the same thing. I think Miami would probably beat Oregon. So you got Ohio State, Alabama, Texas, and Miami. You got a couple upsets there. Neither Arizona nor Utah stand a chance against Indiana, and I would say Notre Dame would probably beat A&M. A&M didn't look excellent in that playoff game. That was due in part to Miami's defense that made it impossible for them, but they kind of sleptwalked through that game. And if you look at how Notre Dame performed in the playoff last year, now it was a different team, but you go back to their playoff run, it didn't matter when they were playing, who they were playing, where they were playing, because they had obviously a bunch of games get moved because of the I don't remember if it was a shooting or a bomb or whatever that happened in New Orleans around New Year's Day. So they moved that Sugar Bowl that was the Sugar Bowl between Georgia and Notre Dame. So their schedule was a little janky last year, but A&M didn't really do a good job stopping Mark Fletcher. I don't think you're stopping Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. Again, Vandy and Georgia probably gets that win, and BYU, Ole Miss probably gets that win. So looking at matchups you get in the Elite Eight, you got Alabama and Ohio State. That would give you a pretty good matchup, but probably a pretty similar outcome. Maybe not as dominant as the one that Indiana gave them. Texas and Miami, that would be a super fun game, but I just don't know if Texas physicality up front can handle Miami. So I'd put Miami in the Final Four against Ohio State, which was a first round game. So you get a little bit of a different matchups with seeding wise, and I think it's fun to keep things fresh, but I'm a big proponent of the 16-team playoff. I don't like teams getting first-round byes because it hasn't paid off yet. Why would you want to be the 1 through 8, at least in this scenario? Yeah, you get a home game on campus, but you got to sit there for 3 weeks, pretty much what it feels like now, and wait for everyone else to play a game against another good team. I don't know there. So you got Indiana, Notre Dame. Boy, that was a great game last year. And then you get Georgia, Ole Miss again. Oh, those are two tough matchups. I think Indiana would get revenge for Notre Dame what they did last year. So I got Indiana versus Ole Miss again because we saw Ole Miss beat Georgia. So the final 4 teams are Ohio State, Miami, Indiana, and Ole Miss, which at the end of the year were the 4 best teams in the country. Oregon made the Final Four and played Indiana, but that was a waste of a game, honestly. So a lot more games, it ends up giving you the same result in maybe a little bit of a different format. So I will say, just basing off of predictions on a 2014 bracket, what it would have looked like last year, it essentially gives you the same thing that a bigger bracket would do. And speaking of college football for 2026, it is, first 2 weeks of College Game Day are set, and kind of the third week, I couldn't really tell from watching the Pat McAfee show, but week 1 of College Game Day, the crew, Reese Davis, Desmond Howard, Pat McAfee, Nick Saban, all of them heading down to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, who is, with everything that's happened just this past week, you don't even have to take into account what's happened the past 6 months. You had to go to LSU week 1. And they'll probably put the number 23 or 24 next to Clemson for week 1, so you have a ranked-on-ranked matchup, because there will probably be a couple more week 1, or maybe, I don't know. The college football week 1 slate this year is a little down, so I would say the Clemson LSU was the no-brainer pick. Week 2, heading to Austin, Texas for Ohio State at Texas, a night game on ABC. Boy, that's going to be a fun one. And nothing against Fox and Big Noon Kickoff, but that should have been one of the biggest games of the year last year, and nobody cared because it was at noon. And for everybody outside of the East Coast, which Ohio is in Eastern, the entire state of Ohio is in Eastern time, but Texas, the entire state of Texas is in Central time. I'll just say it from my point of view, I don't like getting up at 11 a.m. and watching football. Now, I do because I love college football, and if I was in Mountain Time, I think that's honestly probably the best time, because you get football from 10 o'clock to 10 o'clock, and you don't have to stay up to 2 a.m. to watch Hawaii play. And I like watching some. The Hawaii's been pretty good the last couple of years. So, I digress. This is a big game. It's at night. It's going to have a big game feel. That game's going to be awesome. Now, week 3, it's not official, but that's the weekend of September 19th. That is the weekend that LSU makes the travel up to Oxford to play Ole Miss. Now, that one's not official, but especially with everything that's come out this week. I mean, Lane Kiffin saying that Ole Miss, basically in a 4-hour interview with Vanity Fair, which I have no idea why the head football coach at LSU is in a 4-hour interview with Vanity Fair, essentially said that Ole Miss felt segregated. And then you have Ole Miss players' parents calling in on radio shows saying he never said this stuff to us while we were, getting recruited. I mean, that whole thing is just a debacle, to say the least. And then you got Steve Sarkisian throwing in, strays about bread basket weaving or something. So, I mean, the state of the SEC in today's the 14th, but you go back to the 13th, the 12th, the 11th. The second week of May, you got this kind of traction in football. Listen, everybody gives the "it means more" thing a lot of crap, but I mean, I don't see Vanity Fair taking a 4-hour interview with. Actually, I bet a 4-hour interview with Ryan Day would be pretty entertaining, but you don't see him doing 4-hour interviews with coaches and any other coach. I mean, there's not another coach in the SEC that would probably get that treatment, but it's Lane Kiffin. He says fun things that get a lot of people riled up. That whole instance is a perfect example of just getting people riled up just to do it. But I heard someone make the analogy that they think that Lane Kiffin is the first person to ever burn a bridge while he's standing on it. And yeah, he kind of reminds me of a less ethical Buzz Williams when it comes to football. He's just going to go to a place, build it up for 5 or 6 years, get it to places it's never really been. Now LSU is going to be a new one for him because they've won, but he hasn't proven that he's been able to win anything yet. The furthest an Ole Miss team that he coached made it was last year, and he wasn't there for the run. So I'm still kind of struggling to see that he. I mean, obviously he is an offensive mastermind, and made Jackson Dart into Jackson Dart. You could say the same thing with Matt Corral before them, but he hasn't won anything yet, which makes that game. One thing I don't think it's going to be, and this is someone that was at the Tennessee LSU or Ole Miss game a couple 4 or 5 years ago when Lane Kiffin came back to Knoxville for the first time as another team's head coach. The golf ball in the mustard game, I was in that student section. I did not throw anything because I mean, you spend $5 on a water bottle, I'm not throwing it. I'm drinking that entire thing. But nonetheless, I don't think Ole Miss fans are going to be nearly as. Now, listen, that is going to be a crazy. I'll say outside the stadium, you draw a 20-mile perimeter around Oxford. Not sure what all the how everything's located down there, but around the stadium where all the bars are and stuff downtown, that place is going to be a war zone almost. I don't think in the stadium it's going to be nearly as nasty as it was when Lane Kiffin came back and stuff started getting thrown on the field and stuff like that. I don't think we're going to see that, but we could. It wouldn't put it past me, which is why I think College Game Day has to go to LSU at Ole Miss for Week 3. And you know what? Throughout the summer, we'll predict what maybe the moves are for Week 4 or 5 and so on and so on. Because you can make predictions right now for, let's just pick a weekend. Let's go to the calendar and pick a weekend in October that's not the third Saturday, because we obviously know what game you would want to select for that weekend. I love when the calendar app is the one that decides it wants to be slow. Okay, so let's slide over here to October of 2026. We'll go October 24th. That's a Saturday. So we will go into Google here for October 24 college football slate. What we got that day? That will be week 8 of the regular season. It looks like. Oh wow! It's just. Oh, we have the week already up here. Okay. You've got Texas A&M, Alabama. That looks like a good one. LSU, Auburn. Hey, what if Auburn's off to a hot start and they're 5-2 at that point? Ole Miss, Texas. If Ole Miss is off to a good start, that should be a great game. BYU, UCF. Could UCF get off to a kind of another interesting start? Iowa State and Arizona was a good game. Texas Tech, Cincinnati should be an interesting game now that Brendan Sorsby may not have anything to do with either of those schools now. In the Oregon, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan. I mean, you could pick those games out right now, but what if Michigan starts 3-4 and Indiana's 5-2? Nobody's going to care about that game, and it's going to be the 3:30 game on the Big Ten Network. What if Virginia Tech and Clemson start off 6-0 apiece? Dabo versus James Franklin in his first year. I mean, that would be a crazy matchup. Pitt versus Miami. I mean, anytime Pat Narduzzi has a big game, it feels like they win it somehow. So, we go through and pick what we think College Game Day should be for that week and what it will probably not end up being, because that's just how college football works. So we'll continue on the show with some more college football news. Vanderbilt true freshman quarterback Jared Curtis will be appearing in comedian Nate Bargatze's new movie, The Breadwinner, as part of his NIL deal with the Commodores. That's a first. I haven't seen people getting movie deals out of NIL deals, but to keep Jared Curtis in Nashville was huge for Vanderbilt. And if it cost Nate Bargatze a role in a movie coming up, and this isn't like a Netflix movie. This is going to be in the theaters. The Breadwinners comes out in a couple weeks, I believe. But hey, I think it's awesome. I think we should do more stuff like that. I'm trying to think of a just random college football player right now, and that's when you just can't think of anyone. Anthony Colandrea, going to be the quarterback in Nebraska. Let's get him in a movie. I mean, maybe not the quarterback in Nebraska, but maybe the quarterback at Ohio State. Maybe Julian Sand could get a movie, or get Jeremiah Smith in a movie. I mean, you can look at Adam Sandler. He'd throw a bunch of WWE guys in movies in the early 2000s, and I mean, they weren't great actors, but they were funny movies. And I don't think The Breadwinner's trying to win any Academy Awards for the drama of the year. I mean, it's comedy, so obviously not. But nonetheless, I digress. Florida State and Georgia, we had talked about them last week, how they had canceled their home-and-home series for 2026 and 2027. Well, they have confirmed that they will play a neutral site game in 2028 as a pseudo-makeup game for that home-and-home series being canceled. It is now down to a final 7 cities bidding for this. Atlanta, obviously. Charlotte, Miami, Nashville, New Orleans, Orlando, and Tampa are the other sites fighting for it as well. And if you just use a little common sense, pull out the Maps app, and zoom out. Take a big zoom out of the United States and go down to the Southeast, and you see where Athens, Georgia is, zoom in close enough to see Athens, not the biggest city, and zoom in close enough to where you can see Athens and Tallahassee. The only city between them that out of those 7 that make any sense is Atlanta, and I kind of was complaining that it was going to be in Atlanta, but I don't think it'd be a problem. Why would you do it in New Orleans? That's 7 hours from either of the schools. The people in Tallahassee got to hop on 10, and the people in Atlanta got to hop on, I believe it's 85 that goes from Atlanta to Montgomery. But, that's just pointless. Nashville, sure, it's a cool, fun city, but, again, travel-wise for fans, doesn't make any sense. Orlando or Tampa, maybe. It just kind of depends on what you're going to get with Georgia fans traveling, because that's not terribly far from Florida State. Tallahassee to Orlando is still a good drive. And Tampa can, the same can be said for that. Or it's still 4 hours there, so that'd be a long day. Charlotte doesn't make a whole lot of sense for people outside of Georgia. I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of people from Tallahassee want to make the drive up to or the flight up to Charlotte. So, again, all things considered, I may complain about it, and Miami doesn't seem like a great option either. That's even further from the 2 teams. But Atlanta, put it in Atlanta. If we're not going to play home and homes, at least make them somewhat travelable for the fans. Because you know why we love home and homes as fans? You get crazy environments, you get crazy game days. We'll go back 16 years to Knoxville in 2010. Oregon and Tennessee were playing. It was Derek Dooley's first year at Tennessee. It was kind of when Oregon was starting to really hit that rise with Chip Kelly, and had a great team that year. I think D'Anthony Thomas had like a kickoff return for a touchdown or a really long touchdown run. But Tennessee and Oregon fans made like a sort of bond that day that carried 6 years down the road when Tennessee beat Florida and there was the Ducks pulling trucks thing. Oregon made a video, of a duck pulling a truck. So, like a little, you have a bond between Tennessee and Oregon fans. How? I don't know. But you get little things like that. And you take away home and home games, you don't get that. Because you say Tennessee and Oregon played in 2010, throw it in, I don't know, Arlington, at Jerry World, just outside of Dallas. Yeah, Tennessee fans show up, Oregon fans show up, but not the ones that would, it was cool for Oregon to make that trip all the way over to the East Coast. Well, Knoxville's not necessarily the East Coast, but the eastern side of the United States, and play a big game like that. When you take away home and homes because you don't want to play a tough schedule, because you want to make the playoff, and maybe we go back to an earlier story with the 2014 playoff, maybe it'll entice teams to play tougher schedules. But it may even entice teams to play less tough schedules, because now you got to be, physically able to, make it down the line the rest of the season. Because that's another thing that has come into play with the last 4 or 5 years of college football and it's something that I believe Kirby Smart brought it up. He was talking about how talent is dispersed now. How Georgia and Alabama and Ohio State and Michigan, they used to have like 2 or 3 teams of just 5 stars. It felt like. Now a lot of those backups are saying, "Hey, I can go play it. Yeah, it's not as glamorous, but I can go play at South Carolina and get $2 million and start and play, and be productive." So you have a lot of disbursement of talent. So yeah, maybe it's not even sure necessarily what point I'm trying to make here, but teams are beat up at the end of the year. Now they don't have that backup 5-star that can come in and be ready to make an impact. He's at South Carolina playing, and he may be hurt too. Who knows? So you're not going to entice teams to play tougher schedules now, especially with we'll go back to that 2014 playoff bracket. Just a picture of it. If you are outside of the top 8, you're not the first round bye. If you don't get a first round bye, you're looking at winning 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games to win a national championship. Essentially, that's like a third of your season at this point, and you got to play it within 5 weeks. Doesn't seem the most beneficial, but nonetheless, we'll jump on to some college basketball news, which is and this is quite literally flipping the coin from what we were just talking about in college football. Duke and Illinois, 2 of your better programs in college basketball right now. Duke all-time, Illinois at least in the last 5 years. we'll start a home-and-home series, starting in Durham on November 17th of this season, with the return game to Champaign in December of 2027. That's what we need. Duke and Illinois, Duke just outside the Final Four. This would have been the Final Four matchup, actually. With UConn in that buzzer beater over Duke, UConn destroyed Illinois in the Final Four, but it would have given us that matchup. And now you got two great head coaches, John Shire, Brad Underwood, who are going to have loaded rosters for next year, playing a game in the third week in November. And that's awesome, because that's going to be those teams' fourth or fifth games before they go. And I don't know if both of them are before they go play in that Players Era tournament in Vegas and get a lot of money and get a lot of good experience. It's good that we have a big game like that. So we'll turn things over now to college baseball, where we have the last weekend of the regular season. It feels crazy that it is already upon us, because it honestly doesn't feel like the season's really got into a good groove yet, and that could just be the way that it feels like now college sports. You just go from one to the next, and you don't really get time to finish one before you go to the next, sort of. But we do have the final weekend of the college baseball regular season. Looking at what we got starting tonight, and everything is going to be a Thursday through Sunday series at this point. Obviously, because conference tournaments are going to be starting Mondays and Tuesdays next week, so you'd like to give your guys a couple days off. So we will start. Man, we've got a ton of games today. I mean, this is absolutely... we got some teams starting. The Southland is already starting their conference tournament right now at host sites, I believe. Nonetheless, I will look at the games, and that is last Thursday. That would not be the right date. It is May 14th, not May 7th. So if we scroll down to the top 25 tab, got a bunch of games going on right now. Like Northern Kentucky, Elon, Akron, Miami, Ohio. Let's look what we got later today. Nebraska, Minnesota, first pitch at 3 o'clock in Minneapolis at Seibert Field. What else? Rutgers and Northwestern are playing. Creighton and Xavier playing at Hayden Field in Cincinnati. Creighton got a big win over Kansas earlier this week. Cincinnati and Texas Tech playing in Cincinnati. And hey, Bearcats got a number next to their name, and Texas Tech spent a lot of money on a roster this offseason, and it hasn't paid off as well up to this point. Miami and Florida State, their record only separated by one game, where Florida State has 36-15, Miami 35-15, but one of them's number 11, one of them isn't ranked. So Miami, one of those teams, still trying to work their way into the postseason. Michigan, Ohio State, it's not football, it's not basketball. What baseball will do with these two teams, it's Michigan's had a really good year in the Big Ten. Ohio State conference record pretty good overall, has kind of struggled outside of the Big Ten. Clemson, Virginia Tech, a big series. Obviously, Virginia Tech, we talked about them yesterday, kind of dodging Marshall for their midweek game. And Clemson, has not had a great season either. Both teams really looking on the outside, looking in for the postseason. But hey, you get a series win over a team, as your opponent, whether it's Virginia Tech or Clemson, and then you head into the conference tournament, get a couple wins. Who knows? Another team that has struggled a lot in conference play this year, the Duke Blue Devils hosting Wake Forest. Wake, again, a team with a decent record that has just really struggled in conference play, and kind of why they don't have a number by their name right now. Illinois and Indiana doing battle, as well as Notre Dame and Pitt in the ACC. In the Big 12, we've got Kansas State and UCF. A big ranked-on-ranked matchup going on in the ACC. Georgia Tech making the trip up to Brighton to take on Boston College, who, number 23 in the country. Hey, Boston College, the Eagles have been nice this year. Are a really fun team to watch. Hopefully they're able to, I don't think they'll get a host, but they're going to be a number 2 that you do not want to see. Arkansas and Kentucky. TCU, West Virginia should be a good one in Morgantown. TCU, another one of those teams that had a loaded roster. It just hasn't performed as well up to this point. So West Virginia, don't need to take their opponent too lightly. And hey, listen, with a 9 by their name right now for the Mountaineers, you get a 2 out of 3, or maybe a clean sweep of TCU. You win a couple of games in the Big 12 tournament, you'd be looking at a super regional host for West Virginia, top 8 national seed. South Carolina and Vandy, two teams that probably aren't going to make the postseason, with the series in Nashville starting at 7 tonight. Ole Miss and Alabama, two teams fighting for hosting spots. That should be an incredible series. Arizona and Oklahoma State, it feels like any games played in Stillwater, there's just 8 million home runs. North Carolina and NC State, an in-state matchup, number 2 versus an unranked, should be a great series, as is Coastal Carolina and Louisiana. Sunbelt's been really tough this year. Coastal Carolina is 20-7 in conference right now. It shows you how tough that conference has been. A ranked-on-ranked matchup in the SEC, got Mississippi State and Texas A&M. Those two teams probably still on the line fighting for a top 8 national seed. Arizona State and Houston, that should be a fun one. Florida and LSU, it feels like anytime those two teams are put in a series, it's going to be good. LSU, not at that 30-win mark yet, can get to that if they take 1 out of 3 from Florida, but does a series loss with the final conference record at 10-20 get you into the postseason? I don't think so. Probably going to be a team that has to win the SEC tournament. Florida, probably on the outside looking in of hosting, could get a big win this week, a big series sweep over LSU at Alex Box this weekend. Could probably do that. Missouri and Texas. Texas just needs to finish out the regular season. Missouri, kind of on that same boat. Tennessee and Oklahoma, both teams that are, I would say, confidently or comfortably, not confidently, but comfortably in the tournament. I guess confident can fit in there as well. Probably won't be able to host unless one of these teams sweeps the other and then wins the SEC tournament, maybe. But it looks like two unranked teams. It's going to be a great matchup. This one not at Oklahoma, on campus. It's at the Chickasaw Bricktown Ballpark, which is where the Oklahoma City, I believe it's a AAA affiliate of I believe it's the Dodgers AAA team. They're playing at that ballpark tonight. Game at 7:30 on. I believe they're playing that one on the SEC Network Plus. I hate when games are played at big ballparks or a different ballpark than a home one, and it's not televised, but again, TV schedule's way over my head. Southern Miss and Georgia Southern, Kansas and BYU, Georgia and Auburn first pitch at 8. That's 4 versus 5. That's going to be a big series. Not really any postseason implications, but that's just probably the two best teams in the SEC doing battle. Air Force traveling to Oregon State. And that wraps out the slate for all the ranked games other than UCLA at Washington. Ooh, and USC Oregon to wrap down the regular season in the Big Ten. So, I don't know how crazy this weekend is going to get, obviously, in college baseball. I don't believe there's a whole heck of a lot that can get changed. Maybe a couple of host seeds. And actually, breaking news is within the hour, VCU transfer forward Christian Furman is committed to Tennessee. The 6'10" redshirt senior redshirted this past season, but averaged 5 points, 4 rebounds, and a block and a half a game the year before. So Tennessee's trying to really hammer down that transfer portal class, and one that you've now got eight guys down, 4 guards, a couple forwards, a couple centers. Something that can get the job done. But on the baseball side of things, we will come back on Tuesday, I believe. We could have some teams in the state tournament for baseball next week, so not exactly sure what the schedule would look like for the show, but hopefully we're able to have a show Tuesday where we can break down all the major conference tournaments for baseball. We're going to have the SEC tournament in Hoover. Obviously, the Big 12 tournament looks like it's going to be great this year, as is the ACC. The Big 10's got a lot more teams, and the number 1 team in the country. How could that look? We'll get you caught up on all that next week. So that's going to do it for this Thursday edition of the Mark My Words College Sports Show here on the X Sports Network. I'm your host, Michael Marks. Have a good weekend. Watch a lot of sports. We got, again, I mentioned it, the number 4 Auburn versus number 5, or number 4 Georgia versus number 5 Auburn series should be a ton of fun. But obviously, probably going to have a lot of the Alabama and Ole Miss. That should be a good series for the Alabama fans. And then for the Tennessee fans, you got Tennessee, Oklahoma. Still an outside shot to be a host, but really trying to hammer down be on that 2 line. South Carolina, Vanderbilt for all the Vandy fans. But again, that will do it for this Thursday edition of the Mark My Words College Sports Show here on the X Sports Network. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.